Good afternoon. It is Jim Charter, and I have three quick things, and I'll try to be expeditious about this that I want to emphasize for you. Um, not most, a third of the teams have now submitted their request to study a particular organization. I've responded in most of those cases that have been approved. Is that you're trying to do too much. And so I've really encouraged the teams that uh, we've been corresponding to really take a piece of a company. For example, I wrote down some examples. A small standalone company would be, and one of the teams had considered writing a case about Broadway Motorsports. Okay, it's definable. It may even have subsets, whether it's service to motorcycles or sale of motorcycles, and that would define an industry, a particular customer group. It would identify rivals. So that's reasonable size. When you get to a company like Train, gee, it's got industrial, it's got commercial, it's got manufacturing, it's got marketing, it's got financing. So, for one team, looking at a local air conditioning and heating dealer that represents a particular company, in that case, likely it's Train, and they do both sales and service. But it's a defined area, and they've got all sorts of competition. So you could define the industry, and you could divide the rivals. So that's what's going on, and I look forward to, in the next 24 hours or so, getting feedback to each of the teams saying, "Hey, go for what you wanted to submit." Okay, so given that, I want to go back and replow some old ground, and so I encourage you for the next two segments, be sure to have your purchased case project guide, How to Write a Great Business Case as a Class Project. I want to look first at page 15 and 16. Okay, and I know you don't really want to go through the formal process of this, but I encourage you. I've seen more than one team saved by doing this, but this is about writing a team contract. It may be that you could record it on a smartphone, or you could FaceTime it or something that would put it down. But notice the two or three things. You need to get together and assess the strengths and limitations of the team. And that would mean how much time, what kind of skills, who's going to be leader, the alternate, who's going to take the graded project and see what needs to be improved. Essentially define some roles. In the context of that, identify the ideal outcomes of the team. You want an integrated project that scores high on each of the 5 project assignments and really high on the final project. Because as we've said, when you include the team workshop critique, there are 280 points involved in this particular part of the course, and I want you to be very, very good and very satisfied. Notice that third step about developing a communication and participation plan. Okay, determine where you're going to meet, how you're going to meet, how we're going to get pieces ready to go. Step 4, figure out how you will make decisions. I recommend against having one person make all the decisions. It's a team project. And so rather than quibble and peer team input about person A or B didn't let me participate, and so I want to do things independently. No, it's a team thing, and I'll only accept one product for each assignment for credit for the team. So, and lastly, determine how you're going to deal with conflict. This is a professional skill that I really encourage you to develop. And if you're out in industry and a team has been formed, you most often don't get to choose who you're going to be working with, but you got to go through these basic steps. So that's sort of the sidebar kind of thing. I recommend that you remember where this description of the elements of a contract would be, a team contract, and use that in your workplace. And I think you'll be even more successful there. And I know you'll be better successful in this that we're working on. The last part is about a third, I think I said, of the teams already have the green light to proceed. And now they're ready for assignment 1. And that's on pages 22 to 25 in our case handout. Now, just look at this for a second. And in the first reading, it probably is a little scary in that there's a lot of detail that that Dr. Beal, and I happen to be one of the background writers for this, did. And I would tell you that this was sort of packaged and positioned for an MBA class. Well, we're not an MBA class. So one of the things I would do is, as you look at part A, B, and C, is divide all those word counts, those target word counts, in half. For example, on part A, where it's talking about 1,500 words, I divide that by 2 and get 750. And then I use as an operating norm 250 words per page with a 12 font Microsoft Word. And that gets you 3 pages. But now don't throw that information away, because look at the diagnostic questions on page 22 and 23 that give you and your team a chance to have a conversation about the object of the case. And you need to go through there. You got to identify what's the basic business model. Who does it employ? How many? What's their value chain? I really encourage you to look at chapter 3 in the text and study this whole thing of value chain, and that'll help you get some answers to these questions. Part B is if your decision level is the individual or a group, consider these questions. I mean, who's going to be making those decisions? And then the third part, or the follow-on part of that, is on page 24, and it's saying, what are the questions about this industry that we've got to address? And that's chapter 1, chapter 2. Look at item 11 down there. Are Porter's 5 forces applicable? Well, if you can't identify a rival and know something about them, you can't use it in that particular tool, so that hamstrings you because you've put on the sidelines one of the major tools. Value chains the same way, or the resource-based view. So that's part B. And part C then is, in fact, kind of finishing it off about what is the issue. Okay. Now, again, as you've heard me say, this is something you don't want to do alone. You want to really get your team together and go through these. But one thing to help is reduce the page counts or the word counts that are in assignment 1, and have a quality job ready to turn in on Wednesday the 14th. Hope this is helpful. And for those of you that don't have the green light on your organization of study, get that in as quickly as you can. Have a good afternoon.